This is ProZ.com. It's the largest marketplace for translators and interpreters in the world. After 15 years, I deleted my account. Why did I do that? And why does it matter? I'm Jonathan Downey, and this is Inside Interpreting. So why would an interpreter delete his account on a website that exists to help interpreters get work? To explain that, I'll need to do a little dance.
This is me. I'm a church interpreter, a conference interpreter, a researcher, and a bunch more things. This is ProZ.com. ProZ.com is a place for translators and interpreters to get work, a terminology database, and lately a place to do all kinds of stuff with AI. This is ProZ.com's new pasty system, which aims to bridge the gap between human expertise and artificial intelligence. It was also the final reason I deleted my ProZ.com account, after well over a decade on the site, several awards from their community, and countless hours using the site to try to get work.
The reason why I deleted my account isn't just about pasty or AI tools in general. It's about interpreting, and how, if we're not careful, interpreting could end up completely broken. It just so happened that pasty reminded me of something. You see, this is really the story of why I love interpreting, and why you should too. It's the story of how interpreting outside of the big conference cities has changed beyond all recognition. And it's the story of why actually doing well in interpreting, and probably translation, takes a whole new set of skills. I'm also going to be honest about why the whole way we used to encourage people to get interpreting work was a recipe for poor mental health, bullying, and all sorts of nastiness, and what we can and should do differently. So let's start from the beginning.
This is me. A little more than 20 years ago in France, interpreting in front of an audience for the second time. The first time I interpreted, it lasted about 10 minutes and was very informal. This time was different. It was a European youth conference with over 100 young people in the audience, and I handled all the French to English interpreting. All of it.
Yeah, the interpreting I started in was much less regulated and standardised than much of the interpreting I do now. Honestly, that might have been a good thing. The world looks very different when it's just you, the speaker, and a podium that ain't big enough for the both of you. What does all this have to do with ProZ.com? Directly? Not a lot. But when it comes to interpreting the future and why I think ProZ.com and large segments of my sector have gone off track, this little memory is key. You see, I didn't start interpreting with term lists, PDFs and prep work. I started interpreting with a preacher, a mic, and a couple of hundred easily bored young people who needed the interpreting to have a clue what was going on. More than that, the interpreting allowed the preaching to excite them, engage them, and help them feel acceptance. What I would eventually learn was that it wasn't so much about the exact words said on stage, but what these words did. Interpreting isn't about words. It's about people. That's why I love interpreting. Interpreting changes lives.
And it's at this point that we can go back to ProZ.com. ProZ used to be everything at once. First, it was a work platform. Then it became a community with people helping each other with terminology, sharing reviews of clients, warning about scams. It was clunky at times, but it was there. And it was good. Or was it? I didn't realise it at the time, but my reliance on ProZ.com and similar platforms was slowly but surely chipping away at my mental health until, about 2 years into my career, it happened. About 2 years into my career in languages, I had my first episode of poor mental health. For about a week, I had the same routine. My wife would go out to work. I'd lie in bed as long as I could. Then I'd stare at the bedroom wall for hours on end, hardly moving all day. I was not good. Not good at all.
Honestly, it was partly my own fault. While I had read and heard a lot about networking, getting my CV out, and generally being proactive in trying to get work, I felt lost. And simply replying to job offers on ProZ seemed a lot simpler, and less boring than sending my CV out to another 10 or 20 agencies, only to get no response. Or worse, networking around other business owners with whom I felt no connection whatsoever. In fact, one time I went networking, and when someone asked me what I did, I replied, "Wherever you'll pay me for." Not exactly a good first impression. ProZ and job boards like it seem to offer an easy solution. No need to think about my USP or specialism, or what I actually wanted to get out of interpreting. Just reply to job posts. And since job boards have never been happy hunting grounds for interpreting, I ended up getting translation work instead and translated everything from museum captions to a commercial lease. I once even spent several days on the cleaning and maintenance of low-tech latrines, translating the instructions that is. I didn't actually spend several days on the toilet. But that responsive way of doing business was never going to work for long. In fact, getting work from job boards is always going to be a problem.
Here's some quick maths. There are about 750,000 people on ProZ.com. Of course, they all have different languages, but I work in French, one of the more common ones. So let's assume there are about 20,000 people offering services with French and English. Of those 20,000, a lot won't reply to any given job, but some will. I once posted work on ProZ and was shocked that, for a very niche job, I received 40 responses. For anything less niche, I have to imagine a response rate of at least twice that. For the sake of easy maths, let's assume that a job post in a relatively well-known field might get 100 responses. If my experience is anything to go by, around half of those responses will be pretty poor. CVs with no cover letters, irrelevant languages, responses that show no knowledge of the project, obvious copy and paste responses, AI generated ones, you know the drill. That still leaves 50 plausible candidates. Yes, 50. And no one is going to read through all of those in detail. Writing perfect cover letters, adding minute details to your CV. None of that changes the basic maths. You're always fighting against a large crowd. In response to that, maths clients are going to have their own way of deciding who gets the job, and it's very likely that the factors they use will be the ones that you never know. It could be price. It could be whichever message arrives first. It could be a keyword on the CV. It could be whether they like the sound of your name. It could be anything.
Applying for work via jobs boards puts your career in the hands of the system, and in the hands of whichever process the person with the job has decided to use. In short, jobs boards are dehumanising. You are a record, a couple of lines on the screen, an application. And all the work you put into writing will be seen in a flash by someone in a huge hurry to get a project off their desk. It's no wonder that jobs boards are depressing. Did I get work from them? Yes. Was it well paid? Not really. Was it fulfilling? Not really. Did I miss far better routes? By now, you know I did. But that wasn't enough to get me to delete my ProZ.com account. In fact, for years after that episode of Poor Mental Health, I kept using the site to try to get work. I contributed to their events, recorded training sessions, and won prizes from their community. Despite my own business practices moving away from jobs boards as I found out that networking with other interpreters, building my own web presence and finding ways to contribute on wider social media were much better for my business and my mental health, ProZ.com was still there. I'd even stopped offering translation at all, but it was still there. But then came Pasty. Why on earth would a neat little AI extension throw me over the edge to delete my ProZ.com account and never look back? On my journey of actually trying to build a half-decent business, I discovered something odd. The ways I was trained to get work, schmooze other interpreters, write to lots of agencies, respond to jobs boards, network at business events, they weren't that helpful, especially the jobs board one. The problem is that in making it the responsibility of every interpreter to find their own work, we ended up creating a situation where we could easily think that we were only as valuable as the amount of work we had. For the longest time, it was pretty normal that we conference interpreters just wouldn't admit when work was slow. If we weren't getting much work, maybe that meant we were bad interpreters, and we needed other interpreters to think that we were good, so that we could get more work. If your workload is reliant on your reputation, then you're headed down a fast track to hiding behind the mask of fake professionalism. Hide behind that mask long enough and something is going to go wrong. We can easily move from being the interpreter who's easy to work with, a good thing, to allowing ourselves to be mistreated. And of course, this is before we even get started talking about the differences between interpreting the huge conference cities and interpreting, well, anywhere else as a conference interpreter. Every single active conference interpreter I know in my country has a second or third job. That's just life. The only way to get around those issues is to take the risk to be vulnerable. Admit when you're struggling, actually ask for work, and build relationships where it's safe to be vulnerable. Oddly, it's when I started ripping off the mask that I started seeing better results. Being actual me instead of pretend me made the right people more likely to trust me with interpreting. Interpreting is human. Interpreting is human. Always has been, and it always will be. And for interpreting to be healthy, it has to be human-centred. And that's the real reason why Pasty led me to delete my ProZ.com account. Well, ProZ is heading more and more down the AI route, looking to streamline translation processes and interpreting processes. I'm less and less convinced that that kind of streamlining is any good to translation and interpreting professionals, or many of our clients. If anything, it risks disconnecting professional translators and interpreters from the purpose of their work, and making it more likely that they'll become cogs in an ever more complicated machine. It's less about having humans in the loop, and more about hamsters in a wheel. Every time a technology comes along to streamline translation and interpreting processes, there's a real danger that we forget that we aren't here to complete processes. We're here to serve people. ProZ.com is going further down the AI and process route. I'm going further down the people route. The short answer as to why I deleted my ProZ.com account is this: I don't want to go where they're going. I deleted my ProZ.com account not just because of them, but because of me. I'm finding new ways to get interpreting work and new ways to serve clients. It's hard and often tiring, but I think it'll be worth it. Fancy coming with me?